Well, hello, Colin. Thanks for joining me today. This is a first off, so we'll see how it goes, and hopefully it will be entertaining and bring a few smiles and laughs for people, I'm sure. I know that you've been at the GWT for a very long time, which we'll cover shortly. Prior to coming to the GWT, had you done much acting and directing before?
Well, I suppose really it covers my school and college career. I mean, at school, I was involved in plays in primary school, would you believe? There was a youth club I went to, and occasionally we put on a play there. It was a church youth club, so the things were usually sort of church-based. I remember playing a Brahmin in one of the plays. At school, before that, I should say, my mother worked at St Nicholas Hospital in Plumstead, and they had a nurses' home there, and the nurses used to put on plays. But in the 50s, I mean, nurses were female. There weren't too many male nurses kicking around. So they didn't have too many men to help out in their plays. And if they ever wanted a young lad, Mrs. Hill would be asked if Colin would take part. And I used to quite enjoy that. That was good fun. At school, as my secondary school, unless you played one of the girls' parts, because we were an all-boys school, you didn't really get into male parts in school until you were in the sixth form. And in fact, my first duty in drama at my secondary school was I was assistant props. The job that I had in a play that was called Without the Prince was to make sure that an egg was placed outside the door at the back of the set, because at one point in the play, a chicken laid an egg outside and somebody went out and discovered it. And that was my one job as assistant props, to make sure that egg was placed in exactly the right spot. From there, I joined we had an old boys association, and they put on plays, and I was involved in one or two of those. But then I went to college, and that's where acting really took off for me. In the first year, I was in our one-act play festival, and I took a part in The Dumbwaiter. And then I played the part of Horatio, I think, in Tiger at the Gates. In the second year, I became chairman of the Drama Society. There's a surprise. I was in a production of The Caucasian Chalk Circle. And I also directed a production of Brendan Byrne's play The Hostage. I joined the Gilbert and Sullivan Society and was a policeman in Pirates of Penzance. And then the following year, I directed The Gondoliers. The thing I'm most proud of, I suppose, is that while I was there, I initiated the Birmingham University Colleges One-Act Play Festival. And colleges from the Birmingham University Institute of Education came from all over the West Midlands to take part in our One-Act Play Festival, which was a great success. And the author David Rudkin came to be the judge, which was incredible. He was up at Oxford, and a pal of mine was at Oxford, and a few phone calls, and he came along and actually judged the festival. And then I left there in 1964, having taken Othello up to the Edinburgh Festival and other bits. And I got onto television as a result of that. I'll come back to that in a minute, because there's a little story attached to that. But in the following year, my brother, who was 1 year behind me at college, he took over the One-Act Play Festival. So we knew that it ran for at least 2 years. As I said, we then went up to the Edinburgh Festival in 1964. With Othello, and I had a television interview, because there were two Othellos playing, and they wanted to sort of compare the two, and it was paid engagement, and I thought that was great. And I came home and I told my parents and my relatives, and I said, look, at 10:30 every night there's extracts from the Edinburgh Festival, you must watch. And so they watched every night and never saw me once. And about a month later, I got a cheque from Scottish television, Grampian Television, and on the back of the cheque it said "shown in Scotland only." So,
At least
sorry,
nice.
if anybody still remembers that, I apologise.
Oh, that's excellent. So it's pretty much been part and parcel of your life right through, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how did you actually come to pitch up at the GWT?
Well, I started my full-time English teaching career at Swanley School in 1964. But before I actually started there, Edward Alderton, the principal of the Adult Education Centre in Brampton Road, got in touch with me and offered me the drama leader's job for the drama group that was there. Now, this is 10 years before the Edward Alderton Theatre became an entity, because at that time it was still a fire station. So I was working at the Adult Education Centre, and I was teaching at Swanley, and I heard about the GWT from both people who were at the Adult Education Centre, and also because there was a regular poster which was on the wall of the staff room at Swanley School advertising the play for that month, and members of staff told me how good the plays were. And I was directing a play at the school, and Judith Perry, who was one of the senior girls, undertook the job of wardrobe mistress. And she told me that her parents were regular GWT members, and she said they would like me to go with them to see a play. Well, I wasn't too sure about going to watch amateur theatre, and I missed the first play they suggested, but I came along to see Six Characters in Search of an Author in March 1966, and I was absolutely blown away by the building itself and the standard of the acting. I mean, the building was very difficult to what it is today. There were still cauliflowers growing in the car park, which had been allotments, and the building extensions, of course, were still far away in the future. But even then, I was amazed by it. So I came to an audition session for would-be performers, and that was a different sort of process to what we do now. What you did there, all the directors for that current season, there might have been 6, 8 of them, I don't know, but they were sitting in the audience, and you had to prepare 2 monologues and go out and deliver them. And I was standing in the wings listening to these people doing their monologues and thinking, I'll never get in here, these are so good, I will never make it. But in fact, I did impress people. And in fact, Jill Meeson said that she had her former husband's, Miller Meeson's, notes about my audition, and they were very complimentary. So I got myself into a play within a few months of that audition.
Excellent. Oh, it's very interesting how the auditions were that much different.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing was that everybody knew everybody really in those days, and directors cast from people they knew. But if you wanted to take part, you came along and offered yourself, and if they thought you were worth having, they would appoint you. And there were several people who'd come along from Eltham Little Theatre, and Sam Slinner was one, and I think his wife was also there, and they were really experienced actors and performers. And here was I coming from straight out of college and thinking, I don't think I'll ever make anything here, but I was very lucky. So 1966, we not only won the World Cup, but I actually got my first part at the Whitworth.
Oh, excellent. Well, that leads on perfectly, actually. So come on then, what was your first part at the GWT?
My first part at the GWT was the birthday party by Harold Pinter. I mean, at my audition, I had done 2 pieces, one from Othello, which I'd just been doing at the Edinburgh Festival, so I knew the words pretty well for that. And I also did a piece from The Caretaker by Pinter. Now, the upcoming November production in November was The Birthday Party by Harold Pinter. So maybe that suggested to the director that I might be right for the part. Yeah. And I got that, and I repeated the part nearly 40 years later in 2005 when I was in John Masson's production of it. Oh, wow. Same part, same accent,
Right.
and enjoyed both of them very much indeed.
Have you had many plays over the years that you've revisited like that?
One that I can't, well, Othello I've played 3 times. Once at Edinburgh for the college, once at the Whitworth for Mr. Newton, and one at Hever Castle, which I can talk about later on when I talk about professional work. But another play that I did twice at the Whitworth was A View from the Bridge. And that was interesting in a way because in that one, I did a different accent the second time to the one I did the first time. The first time I did it, I'd just been to the cinema and seen Ralph Valloni, the Italian actor, play Eddie Carboni. And he was a very good Italian accent. And so I did it in Italian accent. Then when I did it in 2005, I thought, well, hold on, this is set in New York. So I talked with a New York accent instead and did that, and that was great. But it was great to do the play again. The only thing was that playing opposite me was Ricky Crowhurst, and as you know, I think in The View from the Bridge, Eddie Carboni ends up kissing the boy to try and suggest that he's a fag. And of course, I'd known Ricky Crowhurst from about 5 years old because he was a school friend of my children and just lived down the road from me. So that was mildly embarrassing.
I'm sure. So after having made your way into the GWT, did your first chance at directing follow shortly after that, or was it?
Yeah, quite quickly, in fact, because I directed at school. I think they probably thought that I knew what I was doing, but they would have found out that might not be the case. And in January 1968, I was offered the play All in Good Time by Bill Norton, which became the film The Family Way. I had a great cast, including a rabbit, great support from the technical team, but I have to hold my hands up and say I wasn't great shakes as a director. I think I did 2 plays more or less closely together, about 68 and 70, I think. After the second one, a senior member of the committee advised me to stick to what I was best at and be an actor. Hopefully I learned from that, and I learned from the other directors that I worked with over the years. And after a decade or so, I took to directing again, and I trust that there had been an improvement in the intervening 10 years.
Yes, I mean, I certainly remember you as being a very active director when I first joined. So you'd obviously had your period where you went back and learnt your craft, shall we say, in their opinion. You've obviously tackled many roles over the years and in various locations. What would you say, if there is one, that is your most challenging role?
Well, if I can narrow it down to 2, I think I would say The Father by Strindberg and King Lear, which we were in together, weren't we? One was the mental stress of The Father, and the other was the physical stress of King Lear. I mean, The Father was in 1970 when I was 29, and I got an awful lot of parts in my late 20s where I was playing people who were in their 40s and 50s, and in one case, their 80s. King Lear was in 1998 when I was 57, so I had to age somewhat in both cases and experience a physical demand and a mental demand that were both pretty consuming. I think I prepared for both by doing something that I recommend to actors I direct, and that is to create an imagined biography for each character, imagining events that have happened to them in the past that make them respond the way they do in the play, so that when you get to a certain moment in the play, you will recall those happenings and inform your reactions accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, actually. I know some actors don't like doing that, but there are certain roles where it does bring benefit.
Yeah, I think had I ever been at the Actors Studio, I would have taken to the method very quickly. I would have enjoyed that.
Okay. On the flip side of all this, there must be some classic stories of where things have not gone quite as they should have done. And I should imagine some quite funny ones, if you've got any that you'd like to share.
Well, yeah, I mean, I won't name names because unless it's me that's at fault, I don't mind taking the blame for things that I've done that have gone wrong. But there's 5 that I can think of off the top of my head. In Antony and Cleopatra, I was quite pleased playing Enobarbus, because Enobarbus is the only person in the play who's really got any soliloquies. He's got that fantastic soliloquy where he describes the arrival of Cleopatra, you know, the barge she sat in, etc. I was in the abduction. I was getting near to where I commit suicide, and I'm down front, contemplating just where I'll shove my dagger, and I could hear behind me Bob Dilks playing Anthony, talking and talking and talking, and I thought, he doesn't have a soliloquy. What the hell's going on? And I turned round and looked behind me surreptitiously, and I realised he was on his own, and he should have been with 2 other people, one of whom had gone home early, thinking he'd finished for the night, and another one who I understand was in the loo. So poor old Bob had to say everybody's lines, including his own, and get through it before the next person came on and saved his bacon. And meanwhile, I did nothing at all, but sort of sidled quietly towards the exit because I was off to kill myself. Another one where it wasn't exactly funny, but it was certainly momentous, was in When We Are Married. I played Ormonroyd, the photographer. And true to GWT standards, as the photographer in this 1910, 15, whatever the date is, play, I had a flash mechanism, which was a metallic strip with a phosphorus canister, and when you pushed the button, it flashed and flew smoke everywhere. And before the start of the play, I was getting ready and put it in, put my hand over the bar, and somehow managed to touch the button. And of course it went off, and the magnesium flash went off in my hand, and I could see the skin peeling away. Somebody bound it up, and then they unbound it and they said, put it in water. And so I had to spend the whole of that night with my off stage with my hand in a bowl of water, cooling down the heat. Then that evening I was in Dartford Hospital having it looked at and bound up. So for the whole of the run of the play, I had my hand in bandages, and I think 1 or 2 people thought that I was rather overplaying the clumsiness of the photographer. Did you really have to go to those lengths? Another one was
they don't realise, the audience, what we do they?
They do not know the pain we go through. In Whose Life Is It Anyway? I was playing the body in the bed, and as you know, the character can only move his head and neck. He can't move his body, can't move his arms, anything at all. And on the opening night, I was in bed waiting for one of the orderlies to come and shave me. And it was our opening night, and this was this guy's debut. And I was lying there thinking to myself, I do hope he hurries up, because there's nothing I can do here. I can't get out and do a dance to pass the time. And I turned my head, and Sarah Huntley, an actress who I performed with professionally some years later, was standing in the wings, and she was very young. And she doesn't remember this at all, because I've discussed it with her, but she doesn't remember it. But I swear to God it happened. And she was standing there watching the grown-ups perform. And I said, "Nurse," and she pointed to herself. Said, "Yes, nurse." And I thought, what am I going to say now? And I said, "Could you come and wipe my forehead, please?" And she came on, and I said, "Yeah, I'm waiting for John to come and give me a shave." And I heard a chair go over in the dressing room upstairs, crash. And then I heard steps coming down the stairs, and I said, "Oh, I think he's coming." And he did arrive, and the director went balmy and did give him one. I also remember the 2010 snowfall when we were doing Promises, Promises on stage. You will probably remember that. We'd decided to do an extra performance on the Friday, so that instead of running Saturday to Saturday, we were going to run from Friday until the following Saturday week. And on the Tuesday night, the snow came down, and I was in the theatre, and the guys who were putting the stuff together, Dave Elkham and his mates were putting all the stuff together there, and one of them said to me, "You better get moving, Colin, because the snow's really coming down out there." And it was about 8 o'clock in the evening. We'd been there all day. So I got in the car and drove home, and I think it took me something like 3 hours to get back. And my car didn't move from outside my house from then until Saturday morning. And if you remember, the Friday night got cancelled. We didn't have a dress rehearsal on Thursday as we were going to. We lost our Friday performance. Saturday afternoon we had our dress rehearsal. Saturday evening we did our first performance, and then the following Saturday we did an afternoon performance and an evening performance to make up for the people who'd lost their ticket opportunities on the first Friday. Yeah. And then the final one, and one in which I am guilty, so I hold my hands up, the prime of Miss Jean Brodie. In rehearsal, I had I'd rehearsed the scene, and at the end of the scene, I had to come on from stage left and do the next scene. And I used to just walk, instead of going off stage right and going all the way around the back to stage left, I used to just walk across the stage left in rehearsal. But on the first night, I couldn't do that because that would obviously the door was on the right night to go through it. So I went off on the right hand side, and instead of going all the way around to the back and coming in stage left as I should have done, I went straight upstairs and into the dressing room. And it was only when I heard my cue that I suddenly realised that I should have been stage left coming on. And in fact, I came down quickly and came back on from stage right, and all the girls were looking in the wrong direction, and they punished me later because I had some crib notes on an easel with its back to the audience, so I didn't have to worry too much about those words. And when I took the cloth and took it over, the girls had nicked the crib sheet, so I had to remember it. So they were one or two things that went wrong. There's quite a few over the years, things, things going missing, people not having the right stuff and all the rest of it. But I have to say that in most cases, things went certainly very right. Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. That certainly brought back a few memories there for me as well. I forgot all about Promises, Snow. But I do remember how scary it was going up in the end without a sort of proper tech and dress rehearsal. So.
That's right. I mean, and the next day on the Sunday, several of us who were in that Promises cast, I mean, oh crumbs, here we go, in names now. Helen Gaston, for example, and others. We were in the first of our struggling players Christmas concerts down at Hall Place. And I thought, well, no one's going to turn up for that. And when I got down to Hall Place and saw the ice rink that it was, I thought, no one will turn up. But just about everybody turned up on that day, and that was as I will probably tell you later, that was about the first of 9.
Oh, excellent. So 55 years, I believe, at the GWT now. Yeah.
Yep. It'll be 55 in November.
Right. Have you any idea how many productions you've been involved in over that?
Well, I cheated, and I looked up my CV on the website, and I'm pretty sure I counted 100 productions that I've had some part in some way or another.
Right. That's quite an achievement. I think there's probably only one higher than that, and that's probably John Measures, I should think.
I think that's right, yeah. Because, of course, Well, and good on him. But of course, in those days, especially early on, there was a group of performers, and they were in every play.
Yeah.
And one was the director, and one was the prompter, and then the rest were the actors, and they shared it round one after the other. And mind you, I don't think they had a season as long as the current one in those days.
No, probably not. As well as being on stage at the GWT, you've also taken on other roles. I know for a fact you were the drama chairman for a period of time. Have there been any other significant roles that you've done over the years?
Well, I've tried to make a contribution. Apart from drama chairman, which I think I've been on 3 separate occasions over the years. It could be, or it could be more. I don't know. I mean, I've served on the drama committee for long periods of time. I started the youth group in 1970, and that was one of, although trying to run the youth group and be an actor was an impossibility, but I did my best to see that it flourished. And certainly when I was chairman, I was part of the group that made sure that we promoted the youth group much more, and made sure they were part of the season launch, and made sure we had a paid director, so that we could rely upon someone looking upon it as a job. I mean, it's become an excellent institution now, and much better than when we first started, I know. But I'm very pleased to have been involved with that. And I've worked behind the bar, in the coffee bar, helping with the theatre revamp. I screwed in the seats, so if any of them are wonky, you might blame me. I've operated the sound desk. I've manned a follow spot. I've provided props for plays. I remember getting permission to chop down some silver birch trees in Essex to make set decoration for Bob Dilks's production of The Three Sisters in 1986. And then, of course, as I just mentioned, most recently spreading the name of the theatre further afield by creating 9 strolling players Christmas concerts at Hall Place to support Bexley heritage. But I always made sure there was a lot of GWT material there, so that if anybody turned up and didn't know about us, they certainly knew about us by the time they went home.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, I think the strolling players has become very popular over the years. And like with the youth group, you know, it has grown into something to really be proud of now, but it has to start somewhere, anything like that, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And but it's so nice now. I mean, we used to have the odd youngster who'd turn up and be in a play and you never see him again. Now we've got a large number of people who are regulars in the theatre, who started off as I mean, like your daughter, for example. I mean, she started off very much as a member of the youth theatre, but she's not left the theatre. She's gone on to become a very accomplished adult actress and director herself. So that's wonderful. It's lovely to see that continuity, because I mean, I deal with when I was LTG rep, which is another function that I had, which I've forgotten about, but when I was the rep for the theatre and went to LGTs, I mean, you know, the average age of the people involved was 60 plus. And I mean, and I used to say, no, have you got any young people? And I go, no, we don't seem to be able to attract them, you know. And there I was representing a theatre which had an absolutely burgeoning youth group, and that was a great comfort, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And it's nice to see some of them that, you know, they go on to uni and all that, but they do come back. But if not, they tend to come as a little group and see productions as well after they've, you know, come out of the youth group. So there's obviously something they feel passionate about, wanting to stay connected with the place, and that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, once upon a time, people used to say, "Oh, I don't go to the Jeffrey Whip because it's so cliquey," you know, and I thought, well, I've never found it cliquey personally, you know, and obviously the youngsters who are now into their 20s and so forth, they don't find it cliquey because they've created, you know, their own friendship groups, and they're very much involved with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you've obviously acted and directed over at numerous places over the years.
Yeah.
Would you consider the GWT to be your home? And if so, why?
Well, I have a Christmas card list, and an enormous chunk of it is the GWT section. I do like staying in touch with people that I know. I mean, for 50 years, I would say that the GWT was my home. I mean, especially when I lived 2.2 miles away from it in Bexley Heath, it was very much a central part of my life. I think in 1 year, when I was chairman, I calculated that I had visited the theatre just about every day in that year, except Christmas Day and Boxing Day. And I got so ingrained in going to the theatre that I was going to Essex one day in my car, and I was driving down the M25, and purely from force of habit, I turned off the M25, and instead of going through the tunnel, I found myself driving into the theatre car park. And I thought, what the hell am I doing here? You know, I'm supposed to be in Essex. So it was that, you know, I was that involved in going from where I lived to Crayford. Nowadays, I do live much further away than I did then. And for some years now, I've enjoyed being chairman of the Sevenoaks Shakespeare Society, and I've acted and directed for them almost continually since 2010. However, Sevenoaks Shakespeare doesn't have a theatre, so the GWT is certainly my favourite theatre to visit, even though I live much closer to several other LTG theatres. I mean, like the Oast and Caterham and so forth, they're just up the road. But I still, if I have to make a preference, I'll go for the GWT. Thank you very much. And I also look forward to reading my copy of Whitwords very closely when I receive it online.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Now, we sort of touched very slightly on it earlier. You have done some professional work. Would you like to expand on that at all?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I had a professional career for about 20 years, I think. Well, it was 20 years. I mean, there's no thinking in it. I retired from teaching in 1994, and for a couple of years, I made contact with actors' agencies involved in background performance, and ended up as moving wallpaper in EastEnders and The Bill and one or two films. And then in 1996, I was taken on by an agent, and I started getting better roles in film and television, and some television and radio commercials. I'd been pretty depressed by the casting process in my first months, and I took up a job with Stagecoach Drama Schools as a talent scout and inspector to get some necessary funds, as I was still paying for a mortgage. So I was creating what I called my miscellany of employment. I attended some pretty dispiriting auditions, but in 2000, I went for a casting for the Lock Stock spin-off TV series. I read for parts in 2 of the episodes, and then the director said, to my amazement, "Which part would you like?" And I couldn't believe my ears. I mean, I used to go home from a casting, convinced I hadn't got it, and then wait and not hear anything. And here was the man saying, "Take your choice." So I chose what I thought was the bigger part, and I was signed up. And about that time, I was taken on by Shakespeare for Kids and toured around England and Scotland in 2 musical versions of Romeo and Juliet one year and Macbeth the next. I also auditioned for the Kent Rep Company, who mounted an annual season of plays at Hever Castle, one of which was usually a Shakespeare, and that was usually the one that I got in. Although one year in 2002, I did all 3 of the plays that were in the repertory. That was the year of the facial hair, because I grew a beard for the Shakespeare play, which was Othello, and then I trimmed it so that they were sort of German mustachios for Rookery Nook, and then I took the sides off and left the moustache there to play a detective inspector in Sisterly Feelings, and that was great fun, and I certainly enjoyed that. I performed in 2 musicals at the Bridewell Theatre in London, in Floyd Collins and From Here to Eternity, so I was fortunate to be able to do theatre work, film work and television work, which is very unusual. Usually you're labelled. If you're a musical theatre actor, you're a musical theatre actor and you don't get to do anything, but I've got to do all 3. I did a fair bit of fringe theatre work, which meant I saw a lot of small London theatres and didn't get paid. But I did land roles which took me to Austria and Canada, which was rather nice. 2001, of course, was the big one, because I landed the part of the nativist candidate in Gangs of New York. And that was a real thrill, going to Cinecittà Studios in Rome and being welcomed to the set by Cameron Diaz and then Martin Scorsese, and being congratulated at the end of the day's filming by Daniel Day-Lewis is something you dream of.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember standing on the dais there, looking down at all these actors who were working way below me and these hundreds of extras who were there, and this fantastic set, which had cost $50 million to build. Can you ever think that? And I actually said to myself, in my best James Cagney voice, "Made it, Ma, top of the world." And it was something I'll never forget. And I have my photo of myself in the film, the continuity photo that was taken, and I've got the photo of that, and that's on my theatre pin board.
Yeah, I think so.
But I worked on various other things. I went on, I was on Jonathan Creek, but I never thought things were happening fast enough. That was the trouble. Although when I look back, I was crowding a lot in, but I think I've been spoiled at the GWT because I've been given such great parts at very regular intervals. And now at times I wasn't even getting a walk on, you know. But I mean, I've done other paid stuff since then, but my acceptance of a modelling job for Marks and Spencer's in 2002 caused me to give up my association with my agent, and I didn't strive to find as much paid work after that as I might have done. That's when I came back to do plays again at the Whitworth. That was in 2005. I did sign on with another agent, and she got me some TV and theatre work, but I got to 70 and I decided to quit the round of castings and auditions. The trouble was I was going out in front of people. There'd be 3 people and their combined ages wouldn't equal mine, you know. And sometimes I remember I went in once and I did my best with a piece of dialogue that I'd been given, and one of the casting directors said, "Are you a trained actor?" I said, "Yes." They went, "Oh, that's a shame." And I thought, well, what do you want? You know, do you want people to come in off the street? I mean, I thought trained actors were supposed to be turning up, but that's by the way. But I mean, as I say, my association with Marks and Sparks stopped me from doing as much as I wanted to do. But I still continued doing murder mystery events and business training work, which kept my improv skills tuned. And there were more appearances at Hever, which went on until my mid-70s. I mean, I was asked to do a murder mystery for the mayor of Bexley's Christmas charity in 2013. So I wrote a script and performed it with a group of actors, most of whom still perform at the GWT. Costumes are provided by the GWT wardrobe, and very gratefully received. And here is the cast. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, quite a few faces there I recognise.
Yes, there's Piers, and there's Larry, and there's Helen, and there's names escape me. But there's at least 4 people there who are very regular with performers. Yeah, Dominic, that's what I'm thinking of. Dominic's in the cast as well. Yeah, and so I enjoyed my my professional career. It was interesting, and as I say, I met some very nice people along the way, and did enjoy it. But in a way, I think I was spoiled at the Whitworth. I had too many fabulous parts with you know, good directors, great cast members, and I was always hoping that something would come along that much more quicker.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the case with somewhere like the Whitworth. You get the opportunity to tackle parts that you never get anywhere near, probably, in the professional world.
I remember Bill Slay saying that to me, because I don't know if you know Bill Slay. Bill Slayer's a radio actor who performed at the Whitworth a few times and then went on to work for the BBC and was regular at the BBC. And he came to a show at the Whitworth, and I said, "Oh, Bill, it must be great to work on the BBC." And he said, "It's great to work here." He said, "Do you realise the parts that you get that I don't get anywhere near?" Mm. And I said, "Well, yeah, I suppose I do, really. Yeah, you're absolutely right."
Excellent. So have you managed to keep yourself busy during lockdown with any theatre-based stuff, you know, play read-throughs or recording?
Yeah, I've been doing a regular Thursday afternoon theatre slot with a London writer on Zoom. Oh. Invited audience members from as far away as Germany, Canada and the USA tune in, and it's kept me busy and mentally stimulated. And these days I'm also secretary of the Westerham U3A, and once a month we have a play reading session, and in fact we've got one tomorrow afternoon at 2:30, and we're reading a modern comedy, and then at 5 o'clock I'm doing some work with the Thursday afternoon group, which is a bit odd seeing as it's Wednesday, but then on Thursday I've got my 5 o'clock slot with them again. So it's kept me busy and mentally stimulated, and keeps me in touch with people.
Yeah, which is very important. And have you got anything lined up as we start to emerge from this lockdown? Have you got any projects on the calendar?
Yeah, I made 2 films with a small independent film company in 2019 who are fairly local. They're based in Sevenoaks. One of which gained the Best Film Award and was screened at Blue Water. And we've been working on another one whenever possible in 2020, and we hope to finish it off at the end of this month after my haircut, so that continuity is maintained. My hair was a lot shorter when we were shooting the previous scene, so I've got one booked for the 21st of April, and hopefully in the 8 days up to when we do our next bit of shooting, it'll have worn off the freshly haircut look. Otherwise it will look as if I've had a haircut in between scenes, you know. Yeah. But I'm doing that, and my London writer that I work with on a Thursday, he's hoping to stage some of the plays we've been presenting on Zoom as stage plays, so maybe I'm not finished yet.
Excellent. Right, well, I think that's near enough our time up, actually. But,
okay.
It's been great fun, and
Thank you.
Brought back a few memories for me and filled in a few gaps when you used to disappear for a while. Unless you've got anything you'd like to add, I think we'll...
No, I wish the theatre every future success, and I do know how much people have missed being able to, you know, get along and see things there, and the sadness is that we've lost people, you know, during these hard times, and we won't see them again. And I wait for the day when we can actually get ourselves back in the theatre. While I was thinking about what I would talk to you about, there is one thing which is relatively serious and is worth mentioning, and something that a lot of people won't know about. At a period in time before we built our extension, so it's going back a fair few years, there was a land grab going on. And people all around the theatre were extending their gardens. And there was one guy, in fact, who did extend his garden quite a way back, and you now find him very much almost up against the studio wall. Yeah. And I was there with Peter Morris, and I was a bit concerned that we were going to lose chunks of our car park to people extending their gardens. And Peter organised an earth mover to more or less build a ramp around the theatre at the far end so that we didn't lose any more ground. And if he hadn't done that, we might not have had the space to put the extension and the studio on the space where it is now. And as I say, it's something that not a lot of people know, but
No,
I know.
I've heard that one before.
No, and I think, you know, Peter ought to be congratulated for working very swiftly and making sure that we didn't lose that section of ground, which we might have lost behind where the studio and the storage facilities are.
Yes, could have been a very different story going forward.
Very much, very much
So
so.
thank you for bringing that to light, because I say it's certainly one I hadn't heard before. So.
No, well, as I said, there was only 2 of us there at the time, so, and we didn't promote it very much. So,
No.
but I know it happened.
Okay, Colin, thanks very much. Great fun, and wish you all the best going forward. And
thank you so much. Lovely to see you, and give my regards to your family, and say I hope to see them soon.
Absolutely. Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye.